The alarm screamed through the bridge of the horizon's edge. Commander Jack Hayes ran to his station, his heart pounding. The distress signal came from the New Portland, a colony ship carrying 12,000 human civilians, families, children, people looking for a new home among the stars. "How far are they?" Jack asked his navigation officer. 2 hours at maximum speed, sir," Lieutenant Ben Torres replied. "But the Kravesh raiders are already on them." Jack's jaw tightened. The Kravesh were known pirates, brutal and efficient. They didn't take prisoners, they took everything else. "Prepare to jump. Get us there now." But before he could give the order, a message arrived from Nexus Prime Station. It was from the Galactic Council. Jack felt his stomach drop as he read it. Protocol 47 was in effect. No military action allowed in neutral zones without 72 hours of council debate. 72 hours. The New Portland would be debris in 72 minutes. Jack opened a channel to Ambassador Kate Morrison, who was on the station for trade negotiations. "Ambassador, we need an emergency override. Now." Kate was already in the council chamber. The huge room was filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. Some looked like giant insects. Others were clouds of gas held together by force fields. A few looked almost human, but their eyes held no warmth. "Honored council members," Kate said, trying to keep her voice steady, "I'm requesting immediate permission for our ships to respond to the distress call. 12,000 lives are at stake." Chancellor Vrix, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 arms, looked down at her from his elevated seat. "The protocol exists for a reason, Ambassador Morrison. We cannot allow every species to rush into military action whenever they feel like it. That's how wars start." "This isn't war," Kate said, her voice rising. "This is rescue. There are children on that ship." "The council will debate this matter according to proper procedures," another counselor said. "We should have a decision in 3 days." Kate looked at the massive screen showing the New Portland's position. She could see the Kravesh ships surrounding it like sharks. 3 days? They'll be dead in an hour." "Perhaps your people should have chosen a safer route," Vrix said. "The galaxy is dangerous for those who don't plan carefully." Kate felt something break inside her. She had spent 5 years on this station, always polite, always patient. She had smiled while aliens made jokes about primitive humans. She had stayed quiet when they stole human technology and claimed it as their own. But this was different. "You're going to let them die," she said quietly. "We're going to follow the law," Vrix replied. "Something your species should learn to respect." Back on the horizon's edge, Jack listened to the screams coming from the New Portland. The captain was begging for help. The ship's shields were failing. Life support was compromised in 3 sections. Admiral Ryan Blake's face appeared on the screen. He was calling from Earth. "Commander Hayes, you are ordered to stand down. The Council has invoked Protocol 47. Jack looked at his crew, young men and women who had joined the fleet to protect people, to make a difference. They were all staring at him, waiting. "Admiral," Jack said slowly, "I'm experiencing some communication difficulties. I didn't quite catch that order." Ryan Blake stared at him for a long moment. Then something changed in his eyes. "Understood, Commander. Make it count." The horizon's edge jumped into action. 3 escort vessels followed. They arrived at the New Portland to find it torn open, bleeding air and bodies into space. The Kravesh were already looting the cargo holds. The battle was short and vicious. Jack's ships had been holding back for years, not wanting to seem too aggressive. Not anymore. The human weapons tore through Kravesh shields like they were made of paper. In 15 minutes, every pirate ship was destroyed, but they were too late. Jack's crew recovered 3,000 survivors. 9,000 were gone. He walked through the refugee area and saw a little girl, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a blanket. She was alone, both parents dead. Jack knelt beside her but couldn't find any words. When they returned to Nexus Prime, Kate was waiting. Her face was pale. The Council has voted to censure humanity for aggressive military action. They want you arrested and put on trial for violating Protocol 47. Jack laughed. It was a bitter sound. They want me arrested? For saving 3,000 people? They say you killed the Kravesh in neutral space without permission. That night, Admiral Ryan Blake called an emergency meeting on Earth. Every human leader was present. Blake put a file on the table. Our intelligence has been busy, he said. 3 Council species knew about the Kravesh attack before it happened. They had 12 hours warning. They did nothing. The room erupted in angry voices. Blake held up his hand. It gets worse. We found betting pools. Some of them were wagering on how long our people would survive. Dr. Claire Winters, Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, stood up. She looked tired. I've been analyzing Council behavior for 20 years. This wasn't an accident. They've been testing us, seeing how much abuse we'll take. They think we're weak because we follow their rules. Kate Morrison had returned to Earth for the meeting. She sat quietly, thinking about the little girl on the ship. About 9,000 people who had trusted the Council to protect them. About 20 years of being patient, while aliens treated humans like children. What do you recommend? Someone asked Blake. Blake looked around the table. I recommend we stop asking for their permission. The vote was quick. Every hand went up. 2 days later, Kate returned to the Galactic Council chamber one last time. The aliens were expecting an apology. Instead, Kate walked to the center of the room and looked up at them. 20 years ago, humanity came to you seeking friendship, she said. Her voice was cold and clear. We followed your rules. We respected your protocols. We tried to be good members of this council. And when we needed you most, you watched our people die. You bet on how long they would survive. You called the man who saved them a criminal. Chancellor Vrix shifted in his seat. Ambassador Morrison, if you're here to apologize for... I'm here to inform you that humanity is withdrawing from all galactic institutions, effective immediately. All human colonies, stations and trade routes are closed. No council ships are permitted in our space. No communications will be answered. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Vrix stood up. You can't do this. The economic consequences alone... You should have thought about consequences before you let our children die, Kate said. She turned to leave, then stopped. You had 20 years to be our partners. You chose to be our judges instead. Now you'll learn what happens when humans stop asking for permission. She walked out of the chamber and never looked back. Behind her, the greatest council in galactic history began to panic. They had no idea what was coming, but they would learn. The galaxy was about to discover what humans were really capable of when someone took their leash off. 3 months passed, and human space became a black hole in the galaxy's communications network. Every message sent to human colonies came back with the same automated response. Access denied. All diplomatic channels closed. Captain Ben Torres stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the sensor displays. He was now commander of the Perimeter Defense Fleet, a wall of human ships surrounding their territory. Behind him, Engineer Amy Chen was finishing the last connections on something the aliens would soon call the Perimeter Wall. Last platform is online, Captain, Amy said, wiping grease from her hands. She looked tired but satisfied. The network is complete. Nothing gets through without us knowing about it. Ben nodded. The perimeter wall was more than just weapons. It was sensors that could detect a ship a light year away. It was jammers that made human space invisible to alien scanners. It was automated defense platforms that never slept, never hesitated, never forgot what the Council had done. On the other side of that wall, the galactic economy was collapsing. Merchant Prince Kvalix sat in his office on a trading station, staring at screens full of red numbers. He had built his entire fortune on human goods. Medical supplies that could cure diseases the Council had given up on. Agricultural products that could feed a planet for half the cost of anything else. Raw materials extracted with human efficiency. All gone now. The supply lines were dead. Prices were climbing every day. Kavaliks had been so sure the humans would come back. They always came back, eager to trade, desperate to be liked. But weeks turned into months, and human space remained silent. "They can't do this forever," Kavaliks told his assistant. "They need us as much as we need them." His assistant said nothing. They both knew it wasn't true. Humans had resources. Humans had technology they'd been hiding. The Council needed humanity more than humanity had ever needed the Council. On Earth, Senator Luke Crawford was coordinating the isolation protocols. Every human colony had received clear instructions. No contact with Council species, no trade, no exceptions. Some colonies had complained at first, but then they saw the news from the Galactic Network. They saw how the Council was reacting. The complaints stopped. "Sir, we have another delegation at the border," an officer reported to Crawford. "The fifth one this week. They're requesting permission to speak with our leadership." "Send them away," Crawford said without looking up from his work. "Same as all the others." The delegation was led by a Thorosian admiral. He had brought gifts, trade agreements, apologies. His ship sat at the edge of human space, broadcasting requests. An automated defense platform approached and sent a single message. "You are in violation of restricted space. Turn back or be disabled." The admiral tried to explain, tried to negotiate. The platform didn't care. It gave him 30 seconds to leave. At 29 seconds, he turned his ship around. As he left, he saw dozens of other alien ships doing the same thing. The humans weren't listening to anyone. Back in the council chamber, Chancellor Vrix was discovering what it meant to lose humanity's cooperation. The trade routes humans had maintained were breaking down. Species that had been connected through human territory were now isolated from each other. Wars that humanity had helped prevent were starting again. "We should force them to open their borders," Vrix announced to the council. "They can't just withdraw from galactic civilization." "And how do you propose we force them?" asked another counselor. "Send a fleet?" "If necessary, yes." What Vrix didn't know was that human intelligence had infiltrated every level of council operations. Dr. Claire Winters sat in a secure facility on Earth, listening to every word the council said. She smiled. "They're actually considering it. Send the data to Captain Torres." Ben Torres received the warning an hour before the Thorosian battle group arrived at the border. 23 warships, the pride of Vrix's home fleet. They came in attack formation, ready to force their way through. Amy Chen watched from the engineering station. "Should we warn them, sir?" "We already did," Ben said. 3 months ago when we closed the borders. Fire when ready." The Thorosians never knew what hit them. Railguns launched projectiles at 30% light speed. By the time sensors detected them, they had already punched through shields and hulls. Plasma mines activated, creating fields of superheated gas that ate through conventional defenses. Electronic warfare packages shut down entire ships, leaving them drifting and helpless. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Not a single Thorosian ship returned fire. They were too busy trying to survive. Ben gave them one chance to retreat. They took it, limping away with half their fleet disabled. The footage spread across the galactic network within hours. The mighty Thorosian fleet, humiliated by automated defenses. Species across the galaxy watched in shock. Where had humans gotten these weapons? How long had they been hiding this level of technology? Ambassador Kate Morrison watched the footage from her office on Earth. She felt no satisfaction, only sadness. It didn't have to be this way. The Council could have treated humanity as equals. Instead, they had taught humans that strength was the only language the galaxy understood. But Dr. Claire Winters had been planning something else. She had spent 3 months compiling evidence. Now she released it to the Galactic Network. 20 years of footage, documents, recordings. Every time the Council had stolen human technology and claimed credit. Every time they had exploited human labor with unfair trade agreements. Every time they had dismissed human lives as less important than others. And the betting pools. The evidence of Council species placing bets on how long the New Portland's passengers would survive. Names, dates, amounts. It was all there. The galactic public exploded in outrage. Not all species had known about the abuse. Many smaller species had assumed the Council was fair and just. Now they saw the truth. Protests erupted on hundreds of worlds. Calls for reform echoed through the network. But the Council doubled down. Chancellor Vrix appeared in a broadcast, his forearms gesturing dramatically. "Humanity is dangerous," he declared. "They are aggressive and unpredictable. They refuse to follow galactic law. They attack Council vessels without provocation. We must stand together against this threat." On a human colony at the edge of their space, Marine Matt Sullivan laughed when he heard the broadcast. "Threat? We're defending our borders. That's not aggression, that's common sense." His commanding officer nodded. "Let them talk. Words don't mean much when you're sitting behind the strongest defensive line in the galaxy." Matt's colony was one of the most heavily fortified positions in human space. When Kravesh raiders tried to test the defenses, curious about whether humans were really as dangerous as the rumors said, they learned the hard way. The automated systems detected them while they were still in the next solar system. By the time they realized humans knew they were coming, it was too late. The raiders were annihilated so quickly that only fragments of their distress calls escaped. Those fragments spread through the criminal underworld of the galaxy. Stay away from human space. Whatever they're hiding behind that wall, it's death. Admiral Ryan Blake stood in Earth's military command center, reviewing reports from every border station. Not a single unauthorized vessel had crossed into human space. The perimeter wall was working perfectly, better than perfectly. "We've become the monsters they always said we were," Kate Morrison said quietly. She had joined Blake to review the latest intelligence. "No," Blake replied. "We've become what we needed to be. There's a difference." "Is there? We've cut off trade, destroyed fleets, isolated ourselves from the galaxy. How is this better than what they did to us?" Blake pulled up a file on his screen. It showed human colonies thriving, scientists making breakthroughs without Council restrictions, engineers building ships with technology they'd been forced to hide before, children growing up proud instead of ashamed. "We're not punishing them," Blake said. "We're protecting ourselves. If that makes us monsters in their eyes, so be it. I'd rather be a living monster than a dead saint." Behind the perimeter wall, humanity was changing. Captain Lisa Park led exploration missions into unclaimed space, finding resource-rich systems the Council had never bothered to survey. New colonies were established built on human terms without Council oversight. Technology that had been held back for fear of seeming too aggressive was now deployed freely. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humanity had been holding back for 20 years, not because they were weak, because they were trying to fit in. Now they had stopped trying, and the galaxy was discovering what humans were really capable of. Chancellor Vrix sat in his private chamber, reading reports of economic collapse, rising conflicts, and social unrest across Council space. The carefully maintained balance of power that had lasted 10,000 years was falling apart. And it had only been 3 months since humanity left. He tried to imagine what would happen after a year, after 5 years, after a generation grew up in a galaxy where humans were the enemy instead of the eager newcomers who just wanted to help. The thought terrified him, but pride wouldn't let him admit he'd been wrong. Pride never does. 6 months after humanity closed its borders, the galaxy was burning. Not literally, though some worlds came close. The careful balance that the Galactic Council had maintained for thousands of years was collapsing like a house made of cards. The Vex and Dorothy had been enemies for centuries, but humanity had mediated their disputes and distributed resources fairly between them. Now, with human trade routes gone and human diplomats silent, old hatreds flared back to life. The war started over a mining station. Within weeks, it had spread to 12 systems. On Earth, Admiral Ryan Blake watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Species that humanity had helped were suffering, not because humans wanted them to suffer, but because the Council had built a system that depended on human labor, human innovation, and human mediation. Without those things, the whole structure was failing. "Should we offer assistance?" asked one of Blake's advisors. "The Vex and Dorothy were always friendly to us." Blake shook his head slowly. "We offer assistance. The Council calls it interference. They'll say we're trying to destabilize their authority. We stay out of it." It hurt to say those words. Blake was a military man, trained to protect people. But he was also a leader, and he knew that humanity couldn't afford to be seen as weak. Not again. Captain Lisa Park was on the other side of human space, far from the galactic conflicts. Her ship, the Pathfinder, was exploring regions no Council species had ever bothered to visit. She stood on the bridge, looking at the planet on her screen. It was beautiful, rich in minerals, perfect atmosphere, stable orbit. "Market for colonization," Lisa told her crew. "This is the 17th viable world we've found this month." "Ma'am, this is technically unclaimed territory," her navigation officer said. "But the Council might argue that exploring beyond agreed boundaries violates galactic law." Lisa smiled. "We're not part of the Council anymore. Their laws don't apply to us. Besides, they're too busy fighting each other to care what we're doing out here." She was right. While the Council dealt with wars and economic collapse, humanity was expanding faster than ever before. New colonies sprang up in systems the Council had marked as too dangerous or too remote. Human ships, now free to use the full extent of their technology, reached places in weeks that would have taken Council vessels years to find. On the edge of human space, Marine Matt Sullivan was dealing with a different kind of problem. The Krevesh pirates who had attacked the New Portland 6 months ago had grown bolder. With the Council's navy spread thin and ineffective, the pirates were raiding settlements across dozens of systems. Matt stood in the command center of his colony, watching sensor displays. "They're getting closer to our border," he said to his commanding officer. 6 raids in the past month, all within 100 light-years of human space. Think they'll try to test us again? I guarantee it. Pirates are like bullies. They have to keep pushing to see where the limits are." He was right. 3 days later, a Krevesh fleet appeared at the border of human space. 50 ships, the largest pirate force ever assembled. They had been raiding Council species for months, growing rich and confident. Now they wanted to see if the stories about human defenses were true. Engineer Amy Chen watched them approach from her station on one of the perimeter wall platforms. "They're really doing this," she said to no one in particular. "They're actually going to attack." The Krevesh fleet broadcast a message: "Surrender your outer colonies or be destroyed." It was the same message they'd sent to a dozen Council species. Most had paid tribute. Some had lost entire worlds. The automated response from the perimeter wall was simple: "You have 30 seconds to leave human space." The Krevesh leader laughed. 30 seconds. These humans were all talk. He gave the order to advance. Amy Chen let the systems do their work. Railguns fired from 100 platforms. Plasma mines activated in patterns the Krevesh sensors couldn't detect. Electronic warfare packages shut down pirate ships so completely that life support failed. The Krevesh fleet died in less than 3 minutes. Not one ship escaped. Matt Sullivan watched the battle from his colony. His young daughter stood next to him, holding his hand. "Are the bad people gone, Daddy?" Yes, sweetheart. They're gone. The footage of the battle spread through the criminal underworld faster than light-speed communications. Every pirate, smuggler, and raider in the galaxy got the same message. Human space is death. Stay away. But for the legitimate species of the Council, the message was different and more terrifying. Humanity had just destroyed 50 ships in 3 minutes with automated defenses. What could they do if they actually tried? What weapons were they hiding behind that wall? Ambassador Kate Morrison sat in her office on Earth, reading a message that had just arrived. It was from Counselor Threxus, one of the few aliens who had opposed humanity's expulsion from the Council. The message was short. We were wrong. The galaxy is falling apart. Please, reconsider. Kate read it 3 times, then deleted it. She felt no satisfaction in being right, but she also felt no obligation to save a council that had let her people die. Dr. Claire Winters appeared in the doorway. You got one too? She asked. From Threxus, you? From 6 different species. They're all saying the same thing. The council can't handle the current crisis. They need human help. Kate leaned back in her chair. What do you think? Claire was quiet for a moment. She had spent 20 years studying alien cultures, trying to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. She had believed in the Council's ideals once. I think they're scared. Good. Maybe fear will teach them what kindness couldn't. On the other side of the galaxy, Chancellor Vrix was dealing with his own fear. The Therosian homeworlds were being threatened by the Kravesh. His mighty fleet, humiliated by human defenses 6 months ago, was now scattered and ineffective against the pirates. Civilian casualties were mounting. Vrix sat in the council chamber listening to reports from dozens of species. Everyone had the same problem. Pirates, wars, economic collapse. And everyone had the same question. Where are the humans? Why aren't they helping? Because we told them to leave, Threxus said quietly. Because we treated them as inferiors and watched their people die. Because we bet on how long their children would survive. Did we think there would be no consequences? Vrix's purple skin darkened with anger. We followed the law. Protocol 47 exists for good reasons. The law failed, Threxus replied. And now we're paying the price. Deep in human space, Intelligence Officer Emma Price was monitoring all Council communications. She sat in a dark room filled with screens, watching the galaxy tear itself apart. Part of her felt satisfaction. These were the same species that had mocked humanity, stolen from them, exploited them. Now they were learning what it meant to stand alone. But another part of her felt something else. Sadness, maybe. Or disappointment. Humanity had joined the Council believing in something better. A galaxy united, working together, protecting each other. It had all been a lie. But did that mean the dream itself was wrong? Emma compiled her daily report and sent it to Admiral Blake. Economic collapse spreading to 70 systems. 3 new wars started. Kravesh raids increasing, Council Navy ineffective, civilian casualties estimated at 20 million and rising. Blake read the report and closed his eyes. 20 million. Most of them not soldiers, just ordinary people caught in the chaos. People who had nothing to do with what the Council had done to humanity. Sir, his assistant asked, are you all right? No, Blake said honestly, but we're not responsible for this. The Council built a system that depended on human cooperation. They should have thought about that before they betrayed us. Captain Ben Torres was thinking the same thing as he patrolled the perimeter wall. His sensors showed hundreds of alien ships on the other side of the border. Some were refugees fleeing war zones. Some were traders desperately looking for human goods. Some were Council vessels, watching and waiting. None of them were allowed through. The orders were clear. Human space was closed. No exceptions. Ben had signed up to protect people. Now he was sitting behind a wall while the galaxy burned. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like something else, something darker. On a colony world deep in human territory, children were growing up with a different view of the galaxy. They learned that the Council had betrayed humanity, that aliens couldn't be trusted, that the only safety came from strength and isolation. Teachers tried to provide balance, tried to explain that not all aliens were bad, but the evidence was hard to argue with. The Council had let humans die. They had stolen human technology. They had treated humanity as less than equal for 20 years. Matt Sullivan's daughter drew a picture in school. It showed human ships protecting a colony while alien ships fled. The teacher hung it on the wall with dozens of others just like it. A generation was growing up believing that humanity stood alone against a hostile galaxy. And maybe they were right. Chancellor Vrix had tried using other species as proxies to pressure humanity. He funded pirate groups to harass human borders. He encouraged economic sanctions against any species that spoke favorably of humanity. He used every tool he had to force humans back into submission. Every attempt failed. Amy Chen's defense network learned and adapted. Every pirate attack made the system smarter. Every probe revealed more about Council tactics. The perimeter wall wasn't just keeping aliens out anymore. It was preparing for war. Admiral Blake saw the data and understood what it meant. The galaxy was heading toward total conflict, not because humanity wanted it, because the Council couldn't accept that they'd lost control. Pride was pushing both sides toward a collision that would cost millions of lives. Somewhere in neutral space, a Council diplomat met secretly with a human intelligence agent. "Is there any way to fix this?" the diplomat asked desperately. The agent shook his head. "Your Council had 20 years to treat us fairly. Now it's too late. Whatever happens next, you brought it on yourselves." The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Actions have consequences, and the bill was coming due. 1 year after humanity closed its borders, the galaxy faced its darkest hour. The Kravesh pirates had done something no one thought possible. They had united dozens of pirate clans, mercenary groups, and criminal organizations into a single massive force. With the Council's navy scattered and weak, the pirates were carving through civilized space like a knife through paper. Counselor Threxus watched the reports coming in and felt sick. 17 worlds burned, orbital stations destroyed, entire populations enslaved or killed. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace for 10,000 years, was helpless to stop it. "We need to request human assistance," Threxus said in the council chamber. He had been saying it for weeks, but no one listened. Chancellor Vrix slammed his forearms against his desk. "Never! We will not beg those primitives for help. We will handle this ourselves." "Handle it how?" Threxus demanded. "Our fleets can't stop them. The Kravesh have ships and weapons we've never seen before. They're coordinated, ruthless, and they're winning. Millions of our people are dying while we sit here and argue." Vrix had no answer. The truth was obvious to everyone in the chamber. The council was failing. Without human trade routes, human mediation, human innovation, the entire galactic structure was collapsing. But admitting that meant admitting they had been wrong about humanity, and pride wouldn't allow it. On Earth, Admiral Ryan Blake stood in the command center with Ambassador Kate Morrison and Dr. Claire Winters. They were watching the same reports. A live feed showed a Kravesh fleet attacking a civilian station. Thousands of people were screaming for help. Children, families, ordinary people who had nothing to do with the Council's politics. "We have to do something," Commander Jack Hayes said. He had been sitting quietly in the corner, but he couldn't stay silent anymore. "Those are innocent people." "The Council made their choice," Kate said, but her voice shook. She was watching children die, just like on the New Portland. The nightmares had never stopped. Jack stood up and faced them. "So did we. We chose to leave because they treated us as less than equal. Fine. But are we going to let innocent people die just to prove a point? Doesn't that make us exactly what they said we were? Blake was quiet for a long moment. If we go back, it has to be on our terms. No council control, no political games, no restrictions. We help civilians, period. Not the council, not their government. Just the people who need us. Claire pulled up her analysis. She had been studying the galactic situation for months, preparing for this moment. If we help, we show them what humanity is capable of when we're not being held back. We prove that we're better than them, not through words, but through actions. And if we don't help, Kate asked, then we're no better than they are. We become exactly what Vrick says we are, a threat to galactic civilization. The debate went on for hours. Some argued that the galaxy deserved what it was getting. Others, like Jack, argued that standing by made humanity just as guilty as the Council. Finally, Blake called for a vote among Earth's leadership. The vote was close, very close. But in the end, humanity decided to act. Not for the Council. For the civilians who were dying while politicians argued. Councillor Threxus made one last attempt. He bypassed the official council channels and broadcast directly to Earth. His message was simple and honest. We failed you. We failed ourselves. Millions are dying. If you ever believed in the ideals we claim to uphold, if you're truly better than us, please help. Kate Morrison stood in front of a camera and recorded humanity's response. Her words would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. We didn't leave because we were weak, she said. We left because you refused to treat us as equals. We're coming back not because you asked, but because people are dying. But understand this. We're not coming back as members of your council. We're not asking for your permission. We're not following your rules. We're going to save as many lives as we can, and if you try to stop us, you'll learn why you should have treated us as partners instead of subjects. Commander Jack Hayes led the relief force. His orders were clear. Protect civilians, destroy Kravesh forces, ignore council protocols. It was everything he had wanted to do a year ago when the new Portland died. But this time, humanity wasn't holding back. The first jump shocked the galaxy. Human ships appeared in orbit around 3 besieged worlds simultaneously. The Council thought faster-than-light travel required hours of calculations and preparation. Human ships did it in minutes, using technology they had been hiding for years. Intelligence Officer Emma Price had spent months mapping every Kravesh position. She knew where their supply bases were, where their command ships hid, where their forces were strongest. The human fleet hit them all at once. 20 systems, 50 simultaneous attacks. The Kravesh had no time to coordinate a defense. General Sam Foster led the ground forces. His Marines landed on worlds where Kravesh forces had dug in, enslaving populations and stealing resources. The battles were short and brutal. Human soldiers fought with a precision and ferocity that shocked both allies and enemies. On one world, Foster's troops found a camp where the Kravesh had been holding civilian prisoners, thousands of aliens from a dozen species, including some who had supported humanity's expulsion from the Council. Foster's orders were clear: save everyone. It didn't matter what species they were or what they had done. Right now, they were victims who needed help. Captain Ben Torres commanded a squadron that intercepted a Kravesh fleet heading toward a civilian evacuation. The pirate leader sent a mocking message. The great humans finally showing themselves. Let's see if you're as dangerous as the rumors say. Ben didn't respond with words. His ships demonstrated. Weapons that the Council had never seen tore through the Kravesh fleet like it was made of tissue paper. Tactics developed during a year of isolation proved to be centuries beyond anything the pirates understood. In 17 minutes, 40 Kravesh ships were destroyed or disabled. The pirate leader's final transmission was simple. What are you? Ben's response was cold. We're what happens when you push peaceful people too far. Across the galaxy, human forces were systematically destroying Kravesh operations. But they didn't stop at the borders. Commander Hayes led a strike force deep into Kravesh territory itself. They hit shipyards, supply depots, command centers. The message was clear. This ends now, and it never happens again. Chancellor Vrix watched from the council chamber, his purple skin pale with shock. In 3 weeks, humanity had accomplished what the entire Galactic Council couldn't do in a year. The Kravesh coalition was broken. Civilian casualties had stopped, order was being restored across dozens of systems, and humanity had done it without asking permission, without following protocols, without council oversight. "They've made us irrelevant," Vrix whispered. Threxus didn't disagree. "No, we made ourselves irrelevant. They're just showing the galaxy what real leadership looks like." On a world that human forces had just liberated, a crowd of aliens gathered to watch the human ships leave. They had expected conquerors, the way council propaganda had portrayed humanity. Instead, they found rescuers who asked for nothing in return. An elderly alien woman approached General Foster as his troops prepared to board their transport. "Why did you come?" she asked. "My species voted to expel humanity from the council. We treated you badly. Why save us?" Foster looked at her for a long moment. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because we're better than the people who hurt us. And because we remember what it's like to need help and have no one come." The woman started crying. Foster didn't say anything else. He just nodded and walked away. Behind him, his troops boarded their ships. They had 17 more worlds to liberate before they could rest. Captain Lisa Park was on the other side of the galaxy, still exploring uncharted space. But even she heard the reports. Humanity was back. Not as the eager newcomers who wanted approval. As something else entirely. Something the galaxy had never seen before. On Earth, Dr. Claire Winters was compiling data. She was watching how alien populations reacted to human intervention. The results were fascinating. Species that humanity had saved were calling for major changes in galactic governance. Protests erupted on hundreds of worlds demanding council reform. The old ways weren't working. Everyone could see that now. But there was another reaction too. Fear. The council species saw how quickly humans moved, how advanced their weapons were, how effective their tactics proved. They started asking questions. How long had humanity been hiding this capability? What else were they hiding? Were humans planning to conquer the galaxy? Ambassador Kate Morrison addressed those fears in another broadcast. "We're not conquerors. We're protectors. We came back because people needed help. When this crisis is over, we'll return to our own space, but the galaxy needs to change. No more protocols that let innocents die while bureaucrats debate. No more systems that treat some species as less important than others. No more councils that serve the powerful instead of everyone." Admiral Blake watched Kate's broadcast and nodded. She was setting the stage for what came next. Humanity wasn't just saving the galaxy. They were preparing to rebuild it, on better foundations, with better principles. Commander Jack Hayes sat in his quarters after another successful mission. He thought about the new Portland, about the 9,000 people who died while the council debated, about the little girl he had found, alone and orphaned. This was for them. Every life saved, every Kravesh ship destroyed, every world liberated. This was justice for the people the council had failed. The galaxy was learning what humanity could do when they stopped asking permission. But more importantly, they were learning what humanity stood for. Not conquest, not revenge. Just simple justice. The idea that every life mattered equally, regardless of species or politics. It was a radical idea, one that threatened everything the council had built over 10,000 years, and it was spreading like fire across the galaxy. The Kravesh threat was over. 3 weeks of human intervention had accomplished what the Galactic Council couldn't do in a year. But the galaxy was still holding its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. In the council chamber, protests filled the viewing galleries. Aliens from hundreds of species demanded change. They carried signs with messages in dozens of languages, but they all said the same thing. Learn from humans, and the old ways are dead, and equal treatment for all species. Chancellor Vrix looked at the crowds and felt his authority crumbling. His species, the Thorosians, had been council leaders for 3,000 years. Now his own people were calling for his resignation. The humiliation of having human forces save them was too much to bear. Councillor Threxus stood before the council and spoke words that would change galactic history. This council has failed. We built a system that served the powerful and ignored the weak. We treated justice as something to debate instead of something to act on. We let pride and bureaucracy kill millions of people. And when humanity showed us a better way, we called them dangerous. We were wrong. I propose we dissolve this council immediately and build something new. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some councillors agreed. Others, like Vrix, resisted. But outside, the protests grew louder. The people had spoken. They wanted change. On Earth, Ambassador Kate Morrison was preparing for the most important speech of her life. She stood in a broadcast studio, knowing that every species in the galaxy would be watching. Admiral Ryan Blake stood nearby, along with Dr. Claire Winters and Commander Jack Hayes. They had all agreed on what needed to be said. Kate looked into the camera and began. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council claimed to represent justice and equality. They didn't. They represented power and tradition. Species were ranked by age and technology. The old and advanced made the rules. The young and developing followed them. That system is dead. She paused, letting the words sink in. We didn't leave because we were weak. We left because you refused to treat us as equals. We came back not because you asked, but because people were dying. Here are humanity's terms for rejoining galactic civilization. The terms appeared on screens across the galaxy. They were simple but revolutionary. First, the Galactic Council is dissolved. A new coalition will be formed with equal representation for every species, regardless of age or technology. One species, one vote. No exceptions. Second, any species may choose isolation without persecution. No forced memberships. No economic punishment for choosing independence. Third, trade will be free and fair, enforced by independent courts with judges from all species. No more exploitation. No more theft of technology or resources. Fourth, military action requires unanimous agreement of affected parties. No more protocols that let innocents die while bureaucrats debate. If people need help, we help them. Immediately. Fifth, and most important, every life matters equally regardless of species. No more ranking civilizations by age. No more treating some people as more valuable than others. Kate looked directly into the camera. These terms are not negotiable. Accept them, and humanity will help build a better galaxy. Reject them, and we return to our own space. The choice is yours. You have 1 week. The galaxy exploded in debate. 3/4 of the species accepted immediately. They had seen what the old system created. They wanted something better. But the old council powers resisted. Vrix and leaders from 12 other ancient species argued that humanity was trying to destroy galactic tradition. Tradition built on inequality isn't worth preserving, Threxus responded in the council's final session. We've had 10,000 years to get this right. We failed. Let's try humanity's way before there's nothing left to save. The vote came down to the wire. In the end, it was the smaller species that tipped the balance. They had suffered most under the old system. They voted overwhelmingly for change. The Galactic Council was dissolved by a vote of 521 to 326. Chancellor Vrix was removed from power. He wasn't punished, despite calls for justice. Humanity insisted on mercy. "We're building a better system," Kate Morrison said. "That starts with us being better than the people who hurt us." Vrix went into quiet retirement on his home world. Sometimes, late at night, he thought about the choice he had made a year ago. If he had approved the emergency exception. If he had let Commander Hayes save those people on the New Portland. If he had treated humanity with basic respect. Everything would be different. Pride had cost him everything. He hoped future leaders would learn from his mistake. The new coalition was formed in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Captain Ben Torres watched from his ship at the human border. The perimeter wall was still active, but now alien ships were being cleared through one at a time. Carefully, slowly. Trust had to be rebuilt. "Do you think this will last?" Engineer Amy Chen asked him. Ben shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. But we've given them a chance. A real one this time." Commander Jack Hayes became the first commander of the Coalition Defense Force. It was a military body that included dozens of species, all trained in human tactics and dedicated to protecting the weak. His first act was to establish rapid response teams that could reach any world in the galaxy within hours. No more waiting while people died. The headquarters was built on a neutral station renamed Unity. In the memorial garden outside, Jack placed a plaque honoring the 9,000 people who died on the New Portland. They were the last victims of the old system, he told the dedication ceremony. "We'll make sure they're remembered, and we'll make sure it never happens again." General Sam Foster established training programs where human Marines worked alongside alien soldiers. The first exercises were awkward. Aliens struggled to adapt to human speed and intensity, but they learned. Within months, the new coalition forces were conducting joint operations that would have been impossible under the old council. Captain Lisa Park continued exploring uncharted space, but now she had alien crews working with her. They discovered things together that neither humans nor aliens could have found alone. New worlds, new resources, new possibilities. The galaxy was bigger than anyone had realized, and there was room for everyone to grow. Dr. Claire Winters founded the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. Its mission was simple: make sure the mistakes of the past were never forgotten and never repeated. Students from every species learned about the New Portland tragedy, about humanity's isolation, about the cost of inequality. They learned that justice delayed was justice denied. On Earth, Senator Luke Crawford began dismantling the isolation protocols. The borders opened slowly, carefully. Human colonies welcomed alien visitors for the first time in over a year. Some meetings were tense. Old wounds didn't heal overnight, but they started healing. Merchant Prince Kavalix, who had lost everything when humans closed their borders, received an unexpected message. It was a trade agreement from the new coalition. Fair prices, equal terms, no exploitation. He sat in his rebuilt office and laughed. He had built his first fortune by taking advantage of humans. Now he would rebuild by trading fairly with them. Strange how the galaxy worked. On a liberated world, the elderly alien woman who had asked General Foster why humans saved them did something unexpected. She started a movement called the Equals. Its symbol was a simple equation sign. Its message was even simpler. Every life equals every other life. The movement spread to hundreds of worlds. Young aliens wore Equals patches and demanded their governments follow humanity's example. Admiral Ryan Blake stood in the new coalition headquarters, watching species work together in ways they never had under the Council. He saw human engineers teaching aliens to build better ships, alien scientists sharing research with human labs, species that had been enemies for centuries sitting down to negotiate instead of fight. Ambassador Kate Morrison joined him at the window. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. We did the only thing we could do, Blake replied. We showed them what was possible. What they do with it now is up to them. Some of them still don't trust us. Good. Trust should be earned, not demanded. We'll prove ourselves through actions, not words. Below them, a group of young aliens and humans were working together on a project. They were laughing at something. Blake couldn't hear what, but it didn't matter. The sound itself was enough. A year ago, that sound would have been impossible. On the edge of human space, Marine Matt Sullivan watched his daughter play with an alien child whose family had just moved to the colony. The two kids didn't care about species or history or politics. They just wanted to build sandcastles together. Matt's wife put her hand on his shoulder. Things are changing fast. Yeah, Matt agreed. But maybe that's good. Maybe we needed everything to fall apart so we could build it back better. The galaxy was discovering something that humans had always known. Change was scary. Change was hard. But sometimes change was necessary. The old system had lasted 10,000 years, but it was built on inequality and injustice. It took humanity walking away to prove that a better way was possible. Counselor Threxus, now a key member of the new coalition leadership, gave an interview to a galactic news network. "What did humanity teach us?" the reporter asked. Threxus thought for a long moment. "They taught us that strength without compassion is tyranny, that justice delayed is justice denied, that every life matters, regardless of how old a species is or how advanced their technology. But most importantly, they taught us that it's never too late to do the right thing. We failed them for 20 years. They could have taken revenge. Instead, they showed us mercy and gave us a chance to be better." That's a lesson we can never forget. Commander Jack Hayes visited the Memorial Garden at Unity Station every day. He would stand in front of the plaque honoring the New Portland victims and silently promise them that their deaths meant something, that the galaxy had changed because of them, that no one else would die while politicians debated. Sometimes other people joined him, aliens who had lost loved ones in the Kravesh attacks, humans who remembered the isolation year, young people who were learning about the old council's failures. They stood together in silence, remembering the cost of injustice. The galaxy was far from perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still species that resisted change. But something fundamental had shifted. The idea that some lives mattered more than others was dying, slowly. Painfully, but dying nonetheless. Admiral Blake received a message from a distant colony. They had found something interesting, evidence of an ancient civilization that had tried to unite the galaxy thousands of years ago. They had failed because they tried to force unity through conquest. The message concluded, "Humanity succeeded where they failed. You united the galaxy through example instead of force. That might be the most human thing of all." Blake smiled and deleted the message. Humanity didn't need praise. They just needed to keep doing the right thing, day after day, choice after choice, building a better galaxy, one decision at a time. Ambassador Kate Morrison stood before the new coalition assembly and gave its first official address. "We didn't come here to rule you," she said. "We came here to work with you, as equals, as partners. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. Let's build something worthy of that potential." The assembly erupted in applause, not just from humans, from hundreds of species who had seen a better way and chosen to embrace it. The galaxy had trembled when humans cut off all diplomacy. It had fractured when they stayed silent, and it had transformed when they came back. But they came back changed, no longer the eager newcomers seeking approval. Now they were the architects of something better. And every species in the new coalition knew one unshakable truth. Humanity had earned their respect not through weapons or threats, but through principle and action. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be truly civilized. The old council had ruled through tradition and power. The new coalition would lead through justice and equality. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be perfect, but it would be better. And that was enough.